Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show, where we talk about all components of business and how to utilize them for exponential growth. My name is Athin Cassiotis. I'm a serial entrepreneur, international speaker, results strategist, business coach, mentor, and consultant. Today, I have an awesome guest. She is a strategic advisor, author, and an entrepreneur that has spent the last 30 years growing businesses across Australia, New Zealand, the USA, Asia, and the United Kingdom. She has worked with and grown almost every kind of business imaginable, from startups to SMEs to corporate enterprises, including two of them being $1 billion companies. She built and exited her first business in her early 20s and has been a CEO of a $100 million business and worked as a key brand strategist for huge multinational corporations in the .com, financial services, biotech, and manufacturing sectors, increasing sales and profits by 300%. She is passionate about helping businesses and entrepreneurs scale their business and thrive during difficult times. Welcome, Ryll Burgin-Doyle, and thank you for being on my show.
Thanks, Athin. Thanks for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
You're very welcome. It's sure it's going to be an amazing show for everyone watching and listening today. So you're a very successful entrepreneur. So for those people who don't know who you are, just please introduce yourself by telling us about you and your journey.
Thank you. Well, I started, as you said, in my early 20s. I've been growing my own or other people's businesses now this is my 30th year. It's my 30th anniversary this year of doing that. Started in my early 20s. Got very lucky to get a role with an amazing company called Results Corp. I'm kind of aging myself because anyone who remembers Results Corp has got to be 50 plus. So it was an amazing organization, and I got taught how to grow any kind of business anywhere, anytime during that role. And then I got very interested in the whole health of a business. So not just sales and marketing, but what does it take to have a business thrive overall in every area? Because if you make the phone ring but people aren't trained, you're going to burn those leads anyway. So I got interested in that, and that started my journey into strategic planning and business planning. And I started my first business in that realm, and grew from there. Basically, I've been, as you said, I'm an author. I created a product called Businesses Getting Results, which is 2,000 pages of marketing management strategies for small to medium-sized enterprises that's still used today around the world via accounting firms. I've been Telstra Businesswoman of the Year finalist. I've been listed in the top 50 female entrepreneurs by Smart Company for Australia. I had at one point the 11th fastest growing franchise company in Australia. I've raised $1.8 million in 2 weeks at one point. As you said, I've been the CEO of a $100 million company. I'm also a mum and a wife and have a family. And it's been a great big 30 years. I've also had some big fat learning experiences, which I'm happy to talk about, and wins, losses all around. Had a great experience with entrepreneurship and business for myself and for others. Oh, also been a founder of a nonprofit foundation, which is my pride. It actually was probably my greatest personal accomplishment, called Step Up Foundation, where we worked with just under 20,000 underprivileged and at-risk teens across the UK, New Zealand, and Australia.
Amazing. What a story so far, an amazing journey. And I'm sure it's just going to keep getting better with you as you continue to grow. So I'd like to start probably a little bit earlier on, right? Because not a lot of people get into business in their early 20s, right? So, and you started there and you continue to succeed from there, right? And everything there forward. So I just want to get into maybe your mindset and a few other things. What was it like, starting in business at that age, and how has that helped you? What helped you from that point to succeed from there?
So I think I'll answer the first part first. What helped me was my naivety. I was young enough to have no idea what it was going to be really like. I had a very successful job at the time. My family, who I'd grown up in small business through my mother, and my family were not supportive. They did not want me to start my own business because they knew what it was going to take. They wanted me to keep my amazing job. And anyway, I disagreed and obviously started my own business with $1,100 to my name. Literally had $1,100 to my name. And Really what helped me was I was young enough to know I didn't know what I was doing. So therefore, I listened to my mentors. I did things I read about in books. They weren't theoretical conversations for me. They were instructions. And so I did that. So Michael Gerber, I got to meet and work with Michael Gerber in my first role. And, he wrote he wrote The E-Myth, which I read at, one of my very first business books, really. And, he said, you have to make the business work for you. You have to work on it so you don't work in it, et cetera, et cetera. So I systemized the business and had it work without me. I didn't have an argument for why that wouldn't work. I just said, okay, that's how you do it. Great, I'll do that. That sounds good. So I think what really worked was my naivety. And also, if I think back now, I think, oh my gosh, I had absolutely no right to be in that business. I was 22, 23 years old. I'd never had a business. And yet that business was a strategic planning and advisory firm when nobody in Australia did that. I mean, very few businesses actually did business planning and strategic planning. But also most of my clients were men 2 and 3 times my age. I'm telling them how to grow their businesses. I've never had a business before of my own. So I really had no right to do it. And if I look back, except that I was passionate about it. So I'd say what helped me was my naivety. I was young enough to know I didn't know what I was doing. That was a big key. And so then I took that advice as instruction and actually did it. And my passion, my commitment to seeing businesses grow and be healthy in all areas of their business. And I learned so much in that business. In terms of what it was like, it was hard. It was really hard. And if you think about it, I'm talking 1992, 1993. Guess what, people? No internet, no LinkedIn, no webinars, none of that stuff. We did direct mail, we did phone calls, we did live events to bring clients through the door. Started with 0 clients and grew to 400 active clients in a very short space of time. We became the largest provider of business planning and strategic planning in the state. And we went from having clients who were teeny weeny to having corporate clients like Suncorp and Optus Vision and working on their strategic planning. So it was massive, it was big, it was a lot of work, and it was very successful. And then sold that successfully for 6 figures, 3 years, about 3.5 years in.
Yeah, awesome. What an amazing story, and good to hear, that stuff. And I think that shows that, there's a lot of great value in books as well, right? Like, like the E-Myth, there's many other books out there that, have great things. You don't necessarily have to, invest massive amounts. Yes, there's a good way to invest massive amounts in coaches and mentors and things like that as well. But, just that early stage that, that can be the difference. And I love that, the instruction, it's like, this is the way that it is. I just have to do it. What an amazing beliefs, to uphill, to help you move forward. That's amazing. And you touched on, strategy there, right? And this is a big topic in business because, I think strategy is really the core, right? It's the foundation. It's like, what's the strategy of the business? And that's how you move forward. So, and I guess that people can probably think differently about strategy as well, like that, about what is strategy. And, I've done an MBA myself. I learned from, about Michael Porter and all these things. And, there's so many different areas of strategy. So I'd like to hear it from you about what is strategy to you?
Well, for me, most people are completely confused about strategy. Most business owners actually are very confused. They actually don't know what strategy is because they're too busy being busy. For me, strategy is really simple. It's where do you want to be by when, and what's the fastest, easiest, most profitable way to get you there. That is, you got to find that, which is the strategy. What is the strategy that's going to get you there fastest? And a strategy, the simplest definition is a plan of action. And, if you look it up, Oxford will say that it's various versions of the definition, but essentially it's marshalling resources that you have right now to get you to where you want to get to, and leading that well. So, but for me, it's really, where do you want to get to? How are you going to get there in the fastest, easiest, most profitable way? And that is the strategy you're looking for. And the other thing that I think most people fail to do is actually, most business owners can tell me what they don't want. They actually can't tell me what they want. They don't want to work as hard as they're working. They don't want to be as stressed about cash. They don't want this. They don't want that. But what they haven't done many times, is they haven't sat down and said, well, what do I want? A business is supposed to be a vehicle that gives you more life. A business is supposed to be a vehicle that gives you more wealth. A business is supposed to be a vehicle that has you contribute back to society in some way by what you do, but also by what you can give. And a business is supposed to be an asset that you can create intergenerational wealth with. But for most people, it's not that. It's not that, because one of the reasons is they haven't done the thinking. So many business owners, they might have a plan when they start or when they buy a business. So they get into a business, everyone's got a plan. They kind of got an idea in their head. If it's not written down, they've got a kind of a plan in their head. And then what happens? They get super duper busy. And then it's hold on for dear life, work very hard, do the best you can, and try to fix stuff along the way, versus going, hang on, let's stop. Let's figure out what I want this thing to look like in 10 years' time. And I do that in 5 key areas. What I want it to look like in 10 years' time. And then working backwards from that, what are the decisions we have to make now? And then next and next and next. But you always work backwards from that. The strategy needs to work backwards from where you want to end up versus forwards from your current constraints and circumstances, which is the other mistake people make. So number one mistake is they don't really think about what they want in 10 years' time. The other one is they do that thinking limited by what they're currently dealing with. And especially right now, that is a terrible recipe for business, because right now is not great for a lot of people. So you don't want to make decisions based on what's limiting you right now. You want to look out and work backwards from that. And that once you get clear on what you want, then you can figure out the best strategy to get you there.
Yeah, love that. So many amazing points there. And, it's so interesting, isn't it? I think it's like what you said, you can also translate it to normal beliefs and things about like not knowing what you want. But a lot of people say, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that. It's like, well, focus on what you want. And I think I just interviewed someone big about quantum physics, right? It's the same thing. Like our intentions are everything, right?
Absolutely.
And it's in life, but in business especially, what do you want to achieve? So I really love that and how you break that down. And this is, I think, the power of having someone like yourself, an external person coming in, right? And then you're like, okay, think like this. And maybe you need to, change the patterns and the thinking patterns a little bit. But then once you get that direction, follow it blindly, like a early 20s Ryll, and go, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. And then, if it's tried and tested, then, we can make it happen as well.
That's right. I can give you an example, actually, and I'll say what my 5 things are that I get people to look at in terms of what they want, if that would add value. Excuse me. So I'll give you an example. Recently, sorry, I started working with a business that was massively impacted by COVID. They went from 25 million to 7 million, like that. And we started. The founder of that business had the foresight to say, hang on a second, we have to stop and figure out what we want to do, how we're going to make it happen, what do we want? And we started that strategic work with him and his leadership team to really get the leadership team to think strategically versus just grind on. And in the middle of what was the worst period in their business, we were doing this strategic work, which actually gave the leadership critical thinking, learning that they needed, but also a brightness of the future. And in the end, we mapped a plan to get them to 50 million, 60 million, 50 to 60 million in the next decade. And we agreed in the short term to get back to 11 million. We put strategies in place to make that happen. And in fact, they went past 13 million profitably off the back of being decimated. And that business will go past 25 million this year. It'll go past 32 million next year, and it'll go past 50 million in the 4th year. So it is really about the strategy. I know Jack Welch says culture eats strategy for breakfast. I totally get that, but you have to have a strategy first, because otherwise you can have a great culture sitting around doing not much or being directionless. You have to have a strategy and a culture. They're not either or, it's both. So, that particular business great team, fantastic culture, but didn't have the direction, and really was on a hiding to nowhere. And now we've turned that around. I'm acting as the CEO for that business, and we are smashing it. The team are just thriving. But the strategy and getting everyone clear on what they wanted really has driven those results. So it's very powerful stuff.
Yeah, amazing results. What a turnaround, and just shows that, that external help and what you provide, right, is amazing on turning around a business. And I will probably ask you, since you said it, and we don't have to go into too much detail because I know we've got a lot to cover today as well to help everybody. But you mentioned these 5 areas. Do you want to just maybe
yes,
these 5 areas are
yes.
without going too deep?
Well, it's really, really simple. So what I do when I work with people, first of all, start with what do they want? Magic number. So what's the net profit you want out of this business on any given year? And the number one mistake the business owners make is that they look to the past to tell them what their future is going to be. So they will say, well, we grew by 5 or 10% last year. So 5 or 7%, we'll probably grow, but we can grow by 7% this year. So what you end up with is more of the past constantly showing up. That's that incremental growth that, makes business owners feel like they're living in Groundhog Day. What you have to do instead, as I said before, is go out to the future. What do you want? And so those things that we have to figure out what you want is, what is the net profit you want this business to deliver to you and your family? Therefore, what is the revenue that the business has to do? And based on that, what are we selling to whom and how many of, and how do we get to them? And how do we add as much value as we possibly can to get that result and do that profitably? So that's your magic number that drives revenue, drives your income streams, et cetera, and decisions around market. Then the second thing is, what's the magic lifestyle? Most business owners go into business for wealth creation, lifestyle, to add value to some sector or industry or group of people, and also their self-expression, their identity. So, they don't see themselves as employees. They don't see that as their personal, who they are. So they want to express themselves. But most people don't get all 4 of those things. They get some weird combination, usually lifestyle being the one that suffers a lot. So, what's their magic lifestyle? Do they want to work 2 days a week, 1 day a week? Not at all. Do they want to have the business run without them? Do they want to, they're happy to work 5 days a week, but they want other people to be in charge of various things. So what is the lifestyle they want? Do they want to take all the school holidays off, or travel overseas 3 months of the year, whatever it might be, when we can, obviously. So what's the magic lifestyle? The next is, what's their reach and impact? So what's the reach into the market they want to have? Local, regional, national, international, global. What's the impact? How many people do they want to make a difference to in their sector? Who do they want to be known as? What's their reach and impact? The next is contribution and give back. I use a platform called b1g1.com, which is an incredible platform for micro giving, where we do things like every time someone connects with me on LinkedIn, we give a day's medical care in India to children. So what's their contribution? What's the give back they want to have in the community? And that can be in various forms. And then the last one is, what is the valuation and or exit or succession strategy they want? What do they want at the end of the day? And it could be they want to hold an asset that has a value and they never want to sell it. That's fine. But you want to have a business that runs as if you're ready to sell at all times. So you have choice. And if you've got a business that's ready to sell, it will be well staffed, it will be well planned, it will be well run. So, and it'll generally bring you more profits because it's doing all of those things. So those are the key areas that I sit with people, work out, what does that actually look like for your life, for your business? What do you want in 10 years' time? And then we work backwards from, well, how do we make that happen? And most people actually don't think that all those things can happen, but they absolutely can.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And so many amazing points. Thanks for sharing all of that. And I guess it comes down to us. Let's call it the entrepreneur, the founder, the co-founder, right? Depending on who it is. So, I think, how important is it, for us to have this vision, right? Because we can have people around us, but if it's not us that's driving this, then who is it, right? In these areas. Yeah.
The founder is key. I call it the founder's energy. So even if you look at businesses where the founder has moved on, there is generally a way of being in the enterprise that's been instilled into that business. If the founder's done a good job, it will last beyond them. But fundamentally, the founder is if I was known for anything, it would be me saying your business is a reflection of you. Your business is a reflection of you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Everything that is good about a business owner and founder will be in the business. Everything that's not so hot about that person will be in the business. If they undervalue themselves, they'll be underpricing. If they don't like conflict, they won't have a tight debtors structure. Or they'll not communicate with their team, and they'll have people stay on board too long when they should be exited. Your stuff, our stuff, it's not woo-woo. Our stuff shows up in our business because our businesses are a reflection of us. They're an expression of us as the founders and leaders of those businesses. So, one of the things that I have struggled with forever is letting go and having other people take control of certain things. I've got lots of different businesses. Some businesses that shows up more than others. So it's our stuff that drives what's working and what's not working in that business. And some people will say, well, no, the business is a reflection of my team. And I'll go, well, hang on, but who hired those people? Who trained them? Who onboarded them? Who inducted them or didn't? Who did all that? It's going to start with the founder and then the leadership from there. And the leadership will really, the founder should come to a place where they are leading the leaders of the business, and how you lead those leaders drives everything. So the business is a reflection of you. A business is a reflection of you. So in that sense, for me, people often ask me, what's the key to growth? And the fundamental answer is you. It's not how many leads you get. It's not how much cash you raise. It's actually who you're being as a leader in that business. There is nothing more important, and there's no more important time than right now to work on who we are as leaders in the world, in our businesses, as a demonstration of what's possible out there. So for me, the founder's energy is key. And I'll give you one quick example of this. I took 5 weeks off, not last Christmas before, and we were up at Noosa having a great time. And we, at one part of the trip, we moved to a different location, and there were 3 different coffee cafes downstairs, right? And I was standing back and looking at them, and they're 3 basically selling the same stuff: coffee, breakfast stuff, lunch stuff, cafe stuff. And they were completely different. Why was that? They're selling basically the same product, and yet the founder is expressing themselves in a different way. The music the business plays, the uniforms the team wear, the branding, the vibe in each business, the way things are served, the aesthetic of the place, all of that comes down to fundamentally the founder, the business owner, expressing themselves in that business. So it's absolutely, you can look at those 3 businesses, one not so busy, one packed all day, every day, one kind of average. What's the difference? It's literally what the founder and therefore the team put into that space that attracts people.
Yeah, so many amazing points there. Thank you for sharing that and those stories, because it is so true. And that introspection and really being open and curious on working on ourselves, right? And I think the biggest thing as well is, to add to it is like, what triggers us, right? Like, is there, normally it's an external event. Like they say, perception is projection, right? What we perceive in others is actually in ourselves. So yes. What are we seeing in others that is really an issue with us that then we need to fix or change our mindset, our behaviors, our beliefs, whatever it is, so that we can grow like that. So really love all those points that you said. And so true with all of them. And I think it's a good segue into now talking about, you've got so much experience, right? Over 30 years. And you've, on top of these 5 areas you've just mentioned, you've developed like the 9 vital steps to grow any business.
Yes.
So I'd like to hear just what they are, because, it's probably another level now of different areas of growing that's really important for us as well.
Sure. And what's funny is that I really developed these and was present to these in my very, very first business. They've been honed and tweaked and changed a bit, but recently I went, hang on a minute, it's really straightforward. You have to look at these 9 areas. So the first area is business strategy, which we talked about. Where do you want to be by when? Who do you want to be in the world? And what's the fastest, easiest, most profitable way to get us there? What's the strategy that's going to have that happen quickly and easily? And so that business strategy is number one. It is key. It is the thing that has to be worked out. From there, based on that, you then work out your 8 other areas, which is brand strategy. So who do we want the market to know us as? What's our promise to the people we do business with? Who do we want to be when we grow up? How do we want to be seen and related to? So what's our brand strategy? Where do we want to be positioned in the market? Are we luxury or are we, cheap? Where do we want to be positioned price-wise is also part of the brand strategy. If we're a luxury offering or not, premium or not, where do we want to sit and where do our competitors sit? So what's our brand strategy? Where are we going to place ourselves in the market? And we have to make sure inside brand strategy that who you say you are, the market actually agrees with. So you mentioned my role 100 years ago of being a brand strategist, which I was. And the big thing with brand strategy is to say, well, the market says you're X, but you say you're Y. We have to make those two things actually now realign. So what is our brand strategy based on our business strategy? I'm so sorry. And then the next one is marketing and communication strategy. How are we going to reach our market in the most effective, cost-effective way? What's our messaging? What's our communication strategy? What's our tone? How does that get expressed, etc.? And then we've got our sales strategy, which is an area that most people do almost zero work on. And it's the most important. The vast majority of businesses out there don't even track their conversion rates. Still to this day, I got taught that when I was 21. And still to this day, I could walk into a business and say, what's your conversion rate? And most businesses can't tell me. Or they'll say, well, it's about 80%. That's not true. It's not 80%. Let's do the stats properly. So your sales strategy, what's your sales process? How do you add value in your sales process? Because we can't just, that sales is service for me. Sales is being of service. So how do we add value as we be of service while people are making a decision to choose us or not? And how do we make it so that they are better off choosing us than anyone else and they get that? So what is that sales strategy? Then there is your ops strategy. How are we going to deliver in a cost-effective, profitable, customer-loving way? And then we have our team and leadership strategy. So who do we need to make all that happen? What's our leadership rhythm? How often are we meeting? How often are we communicating? What does it look like? I'm working with a $100 million business and we're taking them to 300 million in the next 18 months. And we've had to completely flip how they led. So previously they would lead by saying, okay, leadership team, here are the goals for you for the quarter. Here are all of your goals for each of your departments. And I'm like, that's not leadership. That's telling people what to do. And you have to carry the burden of doing that. So instead, we literally this week had a leadership team meeting where we said, here's what we want the business to accomplish. What do you need? How are you going to do that in your area? And they're all like, oh, really? We get to say? So they're completely inspired and empowered, and the founders are freed up. They're like, oh my God, we thought we had to do it all. We thought we had to have all the answers. I'm like, no, you're the leader of the leaders. The leaders get to lead. So your job is to empower them and make sure they have what they need. So what's your team and leadership strategy and rhythm? And then tech. What is the tech that you can leverage to make your team's life better, your client's life better, your market's life better? Is there tech that you can apply in your systems, in the way you do things? Specifically, do you have an app for your own business to keep your customers sticky to you where you can add value? What is the tech play that we're using? And also, I'm not a believer in tech for tech's sake. It has to be tech that adds to the quality of life and the quality of the business. And then the next one is our risk and contingency planning. So most businesses don't, as Branson would say, he would say you have to protect your downside. So you have to think about, what if all of it goes to custard? What then? What are we going to do? How are we going to handle it? Where's our safety net in the bank? What's this? What's that? But the other side for me of risk and contingency planning is, what's the upside? How do we make sure as the founder and the owners and the leaders are continuing to grow, are being, they're taking care of their well-being? What is the upside? Because without that growth, a business will never outstrip you. A business will never outstrip you as the founder. A business will never outstrip its leaders. Your wealth will never outstrip you. You have to keep growing. You have to keep learning, and you have to take care of your well-being, which most business owners and founders do not do. Certainly something I am weak at, but I demand it of my clients. And in our businesses, I make sure the businesses where we have invested in businesses and we have founders, that the founders are taking care of themselves, because obviously they're key. And then the last one is funding and finance, which is two separate things. Funding is what capital we need, and finance is how do we control that money. More must come in than go out. Somebody once told me, and I learned that a very, very hard way at one point. So funding, what working capital do we need? Do we have it? Do we have access to it? Finance, how do we control more must come in than go out at any time? So those are the 9 key areas, but it all starts with business strategy and then flows through all those areas. And then the part that most people miss is that everyone says, okay, well, the strategy informs those areas. It does, but then each area is accountable for delivering on their part in that business strategy. So that team I'm working with at the minute, that's going to be 50 million in the next, so we'll do 25, 32 to 35, and then crack 50 after that. That team understands the strategy, and then each area is looking at what do we need to make sure we can deliver at 50 million. And that's the conversation to be having. So each area is accountable for delivering on that business strategy, and each one feeds to the other. So it's very clear and simple and powerful, but there's work to be done in every single area.
Yeah, I love that. So amazing. And, I think the simple word that I could probably explain is alignment, right? Where everyone's aligned in the business and working towards the common goal. And then, you really build the momentum, right? Because business is a momentum game, and, to create that. And I think, a lot of people are, stuck to some extent. And this is where I can see the exponential growth happens, right? Where it keeps building, where everyone's, focusing on that same area though. So I love that.
Absolutely.
So obviously, we've touched on it with today. Obviously we're in a pandemic, right? And obviously it's sort of hopefully getting on the tail end of that now. And, moving forward, but it's rocked a lot of industries and businesses, right? A lot of people have gone to survival mode, have gone backwards, right? Or potentially even closed their doors as well, which is unfortunate, depending on different situations, but some people have thrived as well, right? In these times. So when we have these turbulent, challenging times in business, because it may not just be the pandemic, it could be anything, right? It could be competitors coming, it could be whatever, right? So how can we thrive in these turbulent, challenging times?
So I've been, funnily enough, doing a webinar since I think about April 2020 called Thriving in Turbulent Times, where I've been talking to people about this and adding as much value as I can to the business community. And really for me, there's 3 keys. I see out there that there's 3 keys. So 1 is perspective, 2 is strategy, and 3 is action. So 1 being perspective, I don't mean a positive perspective or a negative perspective. I mean a long-term perspective. Business is a marathon, not a sprint. Business is a marathon, not a sprint. And to think any different than that is a mistake. It is a long-term game. Business will bounce back. We've already seen the makings of a boom before these latest lockdowns. It will come back. It's already in train. It's happening. There's a boom happening. So business will bounce back. Business is here to stay. What I'm interested in for people is where will they be when it does? So perspective, long-term perspective. I came into 2020 as one of these people who was like, woohoo, this is amazing. It's a new decade. Yay. And I created it for myself as the decade that's going to deliver for my businesses, of multiple businesses, for our communities, for our family, for my clients' families, etc. This is going to be it. This is a decade that it all happens. And then we had bushfires, then we had COVID, and now here we are on the second year of that decade, where it's still been very, very turbulent for people. So, but really, I had my own moment. I call it my Chicken Little moment. One of our businesses has been completely shut down in COVID. Just done. Can't have it. Can't run it. Nothing can happen. So I've experienced the pain and difficulty of that, and it was one of our major businesses. So for us to basically suddenly go from literally thriving to nothing is possible legally. We can't have our events. We can't run that business. I understand the pain that people have gone through, but I also encourage people to keep that long-term perspective of, like I said earlier, where do you want to be in 10 years? What do you want in 10 years? Because even if we count these 2 years as terrible, we've still got 8 years to go. So where do you want to be at that marker, that 2030 marker? or even give yourself 2 years off and call it 2032, right? Start again next year. So where do you want to be in 10 years time? What is that? And keep your eye on that prize. That long-term perspective is incredibly important. We have to make these short-term decisions right now, but we have to make those decisions in this acute, crazy period. We need to be making, in my experience, we need to be making those decisions based on that long-term future that we're creating. So in that business that's been shut, the only thing we have poured our energy into is to keeping our the leaders that we're developing to lead our various programs. Our energy has gone into just keep them learning, keep them growing, have them see the future, have them stay in the game, because the minute we open, we'll have places for them to express that. So our focus has been on that leadership and having that continue to grow despite being shut. We've also had to pivot as people. I hate that word. I'm so sick of it. But we've had to do things and go online and all that sort of stuff. But fundamentally, because we have our eye on that long-term prize, that's driven our decision to continue to work intensively with our leadership body, even though we can't do anything right now. So we need to make decisions in the short term in this acute phase based on where we want to end up, not just based on the circumstances we're dealing with. Whilst we have to deal with them, make those decisions with a long-term view, and you're going to do that much more effectively. You're probably going to not make as many mistakes or as many costly mistakes that will take you longer to recover from. So that's perspective. The second piece is strategy, which we've talked about. Where do you want to be by when, and what's the fastest way to get you there? And then looking at all those 5 keys I talked about before. What do you want, and how do we make that happen? And then action. And people say, well, and it's really, I feel like it's kind of, what's the word? I can't think of the word, but people say, well, what action? Well, the right action. And I know that's like, well, what's the right action? The right action will be based on your perspective and your strategy. And then just do those. And mostly what people fail to focus on is cash generating activities. They'll do anything else. They'll do all this other stuff. People will go, well, I'm going to start my business. And they'll go out and spend money on getting a brand and a website, blah, 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 blah. That's not your business. Your business starts the minute someone pays you money. It sees value and exchanges it. So what are the cash generating activities that you can do right now? And the way to look for those is look for how can you add value to more people more easily? Where and how and who can you add value to? Focus on that. And those are the actions to be driven by.
Yeah, I love that. So many amazing points there. Really powerful stuff. I trust everyone's writing some notes down, everything like this about, simplified ways of taking action. And I guess one thing I want to touch on as well, right? Because you mentioned it before, but like we talk about, a lot of the time people talk about revenue in business, right? But you mentioned like, what do you want your profit to be? And I think, profit is likely more important because, if you've got a 3% profit margin or something like that, is the business sustainable, right? We want to have a decent profit. So I'm assuming, when you go into these businesses, you look at different ways. So do you want to maybe share some ways that you can think of simply about how we can maximize our profits, I guess, in our business, which then allows us to grow better and quicker as well?
Well, the first thing is you have to declare it. You have to declare what you want, because what you want is the start of everything. And when you said before, how important are we as the founders? Well, if you're the person, you're the founder or the leader of that business, you have to say what you want that business to produce. And profit is an expression. It's really, for me, it's an expression of how much value you've added. How much value has this business added and how efficiently have we done that? That's what profit is. So for me, you have to declare and set a goal for profit. People often set goals around revenue, and that's backwards. First of all, pick the profit number you want. If you want $1 million profit and your profit percentage is 30%, great. You've got to do 3.3 million in revenue. You're doing $1 million now, great. You've got to find 2.3. You got to fill that $2.3 million gap. If you're reliable for $1 million a year, you just look at focusing on how do I fill that $2.3 million gap, with whom, and how can I add value to what products, what services, at what price to whom, and how many of, and what's my conversion rate to my average transactions, and all that normal stuff. You then do that work, and then that sets everything in motion. And then you've got to work on those 9 areas to ensure that you're doing everything profitably. And the other thing I'll say about that is business people will say to me, well, have you ever worked with, I had someone ask me recently, have you ever worked with a such and such? And I'm like, actually, no, I haven't. And after 30 years, that's that's saying something because I work with pretty much every type of business imaginable. But when I first started out, I was 21, and people would say to me, I was straight out of uni, people would say to me, have you ever worked with an XYZ business? And of course I had to say, no, I'm straight out of uni. Of course I haven't. But what I could say was that the laws of business are immutable. Business is immutable. We all have products or services that have to add value. We have to market those products or services to an audience that likes it and wants it and needs it. We then have to actually be able to sell to them, and then we have to deliver it, and then we have to get paid for it. So everyone is in that cycle, whether it's a 5-minute cycle or a 1-year cycle or a 3-year sales cycle, whatever it is, everyone is in that process. So how do we do that the most efficiently is going to drive your profits. And you're going to need to look at those 9 areas I talked about. But the first thing to drive profits is to declare a profit goal and have your revenue be driven by that, not the other way around.
Yeah, I love that. So many amazing points there. And I guess one thing I like to share, and you touched on it a little bit earlier, is coaching and mentoring. You touched on mentoring, right? And I'd just like to hear it from your perspective of, how important that's been on your journey to help you to get to where you are today, and then potentially helping others at the same time as well.
Yeah, massive. Short answer, it's been massive for me. So I was very, very, very lucky and fortunate that in my first role that I mentioned at Results Corp, I had mentors like Chris Newton, Paul Dunn. I got to meet and work with Jay Abraham. I got to meet and work with Michael Gerber. I did a program called Money and You, which was led by Robert Kiyosaki, Blair Singer, Dame Doria Cordova, Dominic Leone, who's got a $220 million business in Sydney, Kerry Zuria, who's a master coach and entrepreneur out of the US. All of these people were incredibly influential. I got to meet and work with them in my early 20s, and I am absolutely certain that everything I've done is a product of that influence. Paul Dunn, for example, has been my mentor and friend for 30 years. I met him when I was 21. He still continues to be a mentor and friend. And it's been a huge gift. All of that is incredibly important. And the thing about coaching, so first of all, you always got to have a mentor, someone that you can talk to, that you can bounce ideas off in good times and in bad. And the thing also about coaching is that if you look at every high performer on the planet, they have coaches. I have a very good friend of mine is Nat Cook, who's a gold medalist. And when she first won bronze, right? So she's now been to the Olympics, I think 5 times. She won bronze in Atlanta. She then came back, realized that she was committed to gold. And so she ended up with a head coach, a technical coach, a nutrition coach, this, that, the other. She had a team. She put a team together, but she went and asked gold medalists, what did you do? And they all had structures around them that supported them performing at their peak. And she continues to do that today. She's got people around her today, even though she's no longer competing, but she's in business. She's all sorts of people around her. And that's a perfect example. Any high performer in sport, in business, has coaches and mentors around them. There is no question that you need people with outside perspective to actually support you.
Yeah, I love that. So true. Completely agree with all of that. And then that's why I have multiple myself as well. Then it's been amazing today. And as we're wrapping up, Ryll, do you know what one key piece of advice would you give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
I just want to say one other thing that's just burning for me to say about the coaching mentoring thing.
Of course.
The thing that the right mentors and strategists and coaches will give you is a view that you yourself don't have. Generally, when I work with a business, I can see literally bang, 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 how to get it to 50 or 100 million or 100 million to 300 million or 300 million to $1 billion. I can see how to do that just like that, because I'm not in the trenches. It's not because the founders aren't smart. It's not because they don't get it. They love their businesses. They're passionate about their businesses, but you get myopic. You get so entrenched in your own thinking in your own business that you actually can lose sight of what's possible. And then I walk in and go, but hang on, if you just did this and this and this, that could happen. And they're like, really? Do you think that could really happen? Yes, that could really happen. So doing it with a $20 million business at the minute, where I went in, we did a couple of days working on their strategy, got clear on all of the things I've talked about today. And they said, well, maybe we could go from 20 million to 60 million, maybe. They've done 62 million in the first 3 months of the financial year. We set the plan 4 months ago. They've done 62 million in the first 3 months. That was the target for the entire year. And by the way, they've been shut down partially due to COVID in Sydney. They're in construction. So 62 million was not even, that was that's a big goal for the whole year. They've just done it in 3 months because of the work that happened and the perspective they got. They are already on track. They've got booked work. They will do 100 million next year. Literally from 20 million to 62 in the first 3 months. They're going to crack 100 before the end of that year. And then a year after that, they'll do 149 to 165. So the power of that external set of eyes, I can't tell you, for my own business as well. I've got friends and mentors that do that for me. It's just incredible what other people can see for you that you can't. So I just wanted to say that having those external set of eyes, no matter who they are, as long as they're intelligent and they've got experience and they know what they're doing, they're not practicing on you, that's invaluable. So I'd say that kind of answers your second question. Your last question, which was, what's my one piece of advice, is you can do not go it alone. It's impossible, really. It's very difficult to do it alone. And most founders experience being alone. It's lonely at the top. Even if you've got $100 million business, you're the one that's supposed to be making all the decisions. You've got to have people around you that can support you in being amazing. And the other part that I would say is the key to growth, the absolute key to growth, is you, who you are as an entrepreneur, who you are as a leader, what you're up to in the world, and what you say is possible or not possible. You are the key to your growth and success and profits and wealth and all of that good stuff. So
yeah, amazing stuff there. What an amazing ending, and completely agree with that. So yeah, we connected through our networks where I learned about your awesome journey from building and exiting your first business in your early 20s to spending the last 30 years, growing businesses across, Australia, New Zealand, USA, Asia, United Kingdom. You've been formally recognized, for your excellence in business, as twice being the Telstra Businesswoman of the Year finalist and Smart Company's top 50 female entrepreneurs. You're an amazing woman. You've provided huge amounts of value today, which has been amazing. And I'm sure you continue to help entrepreneurs thrive in an ever-changing world. I'm very grateful that we connected. I look forward to working with you in the future as well. So how can people find you and get in contact with you, Ryll?
Oh, thank you so much, Athin. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love talking about this stuff, as you might be able to tell. You just go to my website, ryllburgin-doyle.com. So it's RYLLBURGINDOYLE.com. And you can reach out to us there. That's probably the easiest. Or, of course, LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. So thank you so much for having me. It's been fun. I love talking about this stuff, as I said, and it's a pleasure to meet you and be here today. So thanks again.
You're very welcome. So everybody definitely go check out Ryll on her website and LinkedIn. And, she's an amazing woman. What a jam-packed, value-packed episode for you all today. So thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to this show where we talk about everything on business growth. Please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube as Athin Cassiotis, or visit my website, athincassiotis.com. I completely agree with you, or do I? The only way we know is if you tune in next time. So until next time, remember that our business grows when we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So remember to design your growth and results. Have a great day.